Start. Hi everyone. This is the pre-webinar presentation. The webinar will start shortly. In the meantime, please introduce yourself in the chat window, where you are from, what do you do, and what you are expecting from the session. Learning and exposure for teachers and educators has been the inspiration behind FIRKI's webinars. You can go through the different webinars and learning paths conducted on the portal. The link to the same will be pasted in the chat window soon. We believe that your time is valuable and we want to acknowledge your presence in the session, and will also be providing our participants with a certificate of attendance. This is made available to participants who attend the entire session. We will share more details on how to fill the feedback form and access the certificate towards the end of the webinar. You can join a FIRKI webinar on two platforms, Zoom and YouTube. The YouTube live link will be pasted shortly in the chat window. Now, I will take you through a few features on Zoom that you can use to have an engaging and productive session. This is the mic button. You can click this to keep yourself muted. Unmute only if the speaker asks you to. This is the video button. You can switch it on and off. You can use it to switch your video on and off with. You can share your questions and thoughts in the chat window. I will be here to curate your questions and share them with our speaker. Participants who are joining us on YouTube can share their comments in the comments section that will be shared with the speaker on Zoom soon. Welcome everyone to FIRKI's webinar series. We're delighted to have you join us today for today's webinar titled Out of Place, Looking at Gender in Schooling Through a Space Lens, in partnership with Integral. I am your host Shraddha and I work at FIRKI. I will be your guide this webinar to help you navigate through it. I would like to take a quick moment to share the objectives of today's webinar. This webinar will introduce you to looking at classrooms and schools through a gender lens. How do classrooms foster belongingness? This webinar will be built on research and theoretical findings. We'll use an expressly feminist lens. Remember, men are also feminists, and bring it alive through personal anecdotes and stories. We now come to the introduction of our speaker today. Fiona Vaz is the founder and director of Integral, which is a gender and education-focused research and consulting firm in India. Integral's aim is to make education and allied areas more gender transformative through using high-quality research findings. She is specifically interested in feminist research, training, and creative learning experiences. In the past, she has been an educator in various capacities for more than a decade, including being a Teach for India 2009 fellow. She has an MA in Industrial Psychology from Mumbai University, an MA in Education, Gender and International Development from Institute of Education, University College London. Integral, that is Intersectional Gender Research, Advocacy and Learning, is a gender-focused research firm that aims to mainstream gender in education and livelihoods through research and advisory. They combine research observed experiences and listening to help create a gender transformative world. Started in 2020, we are based in India and focus on the global south. As we move to the webinar, I have a few requests of our participants as well. We request you to keep your cameras on for an effective interaction. To avoid disturbance, we request you to keep your mics off unless speakers ask to unmute. Use the Q&A function to ask a question or raise hand to say something. Participate enthusiastically throughout the session. Thank you. Hope you have an interesting session. Over to our speaker now.
Thank you, Shraddha, for this. Hi, everybody. Welcome to all of you. I can see a lot of, I can see tiles with names actually and not faces, but that's totally fine. I mean, it's fine from my side. And my introduction is done, so I think I can quickly start with the, with the webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and I'll just quickly share my screen. Give me a minute, yeah. Okay, so I hope you all can see my screen. I hope you can all hear me. So I'll start with talking a little bit about, I'll just keep moving and talking. Of course, this is a webinar, but in so many ways, it's designed as a workshop in my mind. So please feel free to participate. I'll just go through the norms. So the idea is, the name is Out of Place, looking at gender and schooling through a space lens. So of course, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about gender and schooling. And it's largely India related, but of course, I think that there will be some takeaways for people from other contexts also. And of course, there is like, are you looking at it from a gender lens? Are you looking at it from a space lens? So these are kind of interchangeable terms depending on which standpoint you take. I'll be talking about all this as we go along. So yeah, so let me start with who am I? I think Shraddha has done an excellent job, so I'm not going to, keep talking about it. But of course, if you have any specific questions about my work or something, you can have a look at maybe the website or, just have a look at what in general, or you can just ask. You can really just ask. I'll also give my email address at the end, so you can do that. So we are looking at gender and education from a space lens, right? So what is exactly a space lens? Like, generally, like the question is, why do we see something from a gender lens, right? But now I'm saying we're looking at gender and education from a space lens. And what does that mean? So generally, to have an understanding of whether there is equality anywhere, or rather, let's say, if we want to assess if there is equality in education, we most often use this term called parity. Okay, and parity basically means, the numbers, like, what's the number and is there parity? And generally, you will look at, is there parity, equality in the number of boys and girls, for example, in enrollment? So how many of them are enrolling in schools year on year? Or there will be, we'll try to assess parity at the time of completion. So how many girls and boys are completing education? Sometimes we look at, parity in terms of, how many students are entering a certain subject, how many of them are graduating from that certain subject. So parity is often used to understand gender within the schooling space. There are other kinds of research also that are being done. Nowadays, you have a lot of research coming out in terms of curriculum and content. So how your curriculum, how your content is gendered is also a way to understand how much, like, what is gender within that schooling, within that school, within that education space. Let me think of any other research that is being done. I think there is a lot of research being done even in terms of digital education, right? Like, and gender, a little bit over there, like, who's getting bullied out, who's using social media, who has access to certain technologies, who is speaking more in certain spaces. So all this is also being measured. Now, the reason we use a space lens, and we will talk a lot more, I mean, this entire 90 minutes are dedicated to you understanding how to look at space and how to use that to analyze gender equality, gender relationships within a schooling system. So we will be talking about that. But the reason we use a space lens is because when you take a space lens, you actually take a step back. So of course, how many students are enrolling in school sometimes, like you have all the data, you have how many students are graduating, how many of them are dropping out, how many of them are entering a certain career, how many of them are not proceeding in their career. You have all this information, but the space lens allows you to ask the question why this is happening. So why are students enrolling in this school as opposed to that school? Why are students not enrolling for that matter? Why are students graduating? Why are students not graduating? So it just helps you take a step back. It helps you in other ways to go behind these numbers. to really understand what's actually behind these numbers. So that's why we will be using a space lens. Okay. We'll be talking a lot more about the space lens. If you feel like you haven't understood, it's totally fine. Yeah, we're just sort of warming up. So there are certain, of course, instructions that Shraddha has shared with you. There are certain norms for this webinar itself, for the gender and education space webinar. One is, like I said, it is a webinar, but it is, so many ways I've designed it more as a workshop. So there will be lots of questions I will be asking. There will be an open discussion. And I know that there are 77 participants as of now. So like even, let's see how we can do it. Maybe I'll just put a number to how many people can speak. But whenever you can speak and talk, and especially if you have a view that is absolutely different, and I don't mean opposite at all, but if there is something that is different to what is being said, I really, really encourage you to share that view. The other one is definitely to become an observer. So I often say that, almost all of us have a gender. Of course, there are some people who don't have a gender, who don't accept a gender, but a lot of us have a gender. And we can see ourselves, we can see ourselves in these examples. We can see ourselves, for example, as being discriminated against. And sometimes we also see ourselves as people who are discriminating in the terms, in gender terms, right? So what I would ask you to do is in this webinar, try to take yourself out of this equation. Don't see yourself as a participant in the society, but see yourself as an observer. Try and see how things are happening. Take that observer lens and don't because try not to get defensive about it. Because honestly, I have also discriminated on the basis of gender. So, and we're all on a learning journey. And until and unless we actually observe ourselves, we're not going to understand whether we ourselves have certain biases or not. And it's completely fine to have these biases. What is problematic is when you act on these biases. Okay, so just remember that. So there's no need to get defensive about some of your beliefs. Yeah. The other one is become a feminist observer. And what do I mean by that? So the term feminist is often considered to be like a taboo word, like don't use the word feminist. Why can't you just use the word gender? Just use the word gender, just become a gender observer. But I'm specifically using the word feminist because feminism, the basic premise of feminism is that if you believe that girls, boys, and people of other gender, they're equal. If you believe that, you're a feminist. If you believe that there should be an end to sexist oppression, you're a feminist. So there is no need to shy away from using the word feminist. And therefore, given all these points, like, men are also feminists. And basically everybody who believes in equality of the sexes is feminist. So there's no need to kind of shy away from that word. And second is, in terms of a feminist observer, the idea of feminism is that you find the weakest, then the lowest voice in the room and amplify that voice, or you amplify those needs. And so in that sense, if you find yourself amplifying the weakest voices and the the lowest needs, then you are a feminist. Yeah. So take on these lenses. So these are my 3 requests from all of you. You will be, of course, invited to put responses, in the chat. I mean, questions and clarifications in the chat. If there is something absolutely urgent and you feel like, no, you really, really need to clarify something, I think it's completely fine if you unmute yourself and ask. I think I'm fine with that. I'm not sure how many notifications I might get and whether I'll miss them. So therefore, it's okay if you'll just tell me. Yeah, any questions about the norms? Any questions about the space lens? Okay, I don't know if there are any questions or something, but I will definitely proceed. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. Fine, let's just proceed. I just need to close a section.
Fiona, there's one quick question in the chat. What is the Swapna asks, what is the difference between opposite and different? Is opposite not different?
Yeah, opposite, and so opposite is different, but different may not be opposite. So if I say something like, not if anybody says something like, girls are not getting equal access to education, don't be opposite and say, but boys are not getting it too. Right? Try to like be different and say, yeah, girls, be different rather than being oppositional is what I mean. Yeah. Of course, you can be opposite, but try to be more different. I hope that makes sense. Sorry, I'm just managing a few notifications. 1 minute, yeah. Okay, let's proceed. So I'll give you a quick outline of the session. Of course, I finished with the introduction and norms, and hopefully I've stuck to time. I will be introducing you to spaces through, more of, I'll just basically introduce you to spaces. Then we will have a look at Henri Lefebvre's production of space theory. Then we will apply this theory to one through a discussion mode. Okay, and this is where I would really invite you to discuss. We'll then have a look at the history of schooling and gender in India. And then we'll have one small exercise on schooling and space. And then I will close, basically open for any questions and, whatever comes up. I also wanted to tell all of you one thing. If, when you're doing this work, like going through this webinar, actually think of yourself as somebody who might be doing this session with your own colleagues, maybe. Talking about it maybe, in front of somebody, or maybe doing a small workshop with your students on this, or maybe, applying it to another space that probably you control. So if you are somebody who is running maybe a meditation space, so like, look at that meditation space through this, through a gender lens also. It will help you become very, very active, and it'll really surface all the questions that you might have. The other thing is that it is possible that this workshop might get a little too information heavy, and I will not shy away from that, because I think that, we educate, sometimes I think educators are so, we have a bias for action. We want to go and act, we want to do something, we want to change stuff. But first, extremely important is we need to understand the roots of, what is happening in the present. And if we don't get it, then, it's possible that we are going to be doing certain actions that are actually not going to be helpful in the long run. So again, if you have any questions, you need some time to go through the material. Let this webinar be an introduction. Take your time, read information. I'll share some resources at the end. Have a look at those, and maybe come back, write to me, and I'll be very happy to share, additional information. Okay, so we'll start now. On your screens, all of you can see an image. And it would be really nice if one of you can unmute yourself and tell me, what do you see?
All boys.
All boys. Yeah. Anybody seeing anything other than that? Any more context? Like, what is it? Like, where are all these boys? What are they doing? What is it?
Top 100.
For a competitive exam, which
Yeah.
happens all over India. And I think it's mainly engineering, which actually shows that, how professions and how these subjects are also gendered. You cannot see a single girl, score a rank, all in a rank. You can only see boys.
Thank you. I don't know who spoke, but I'm really grateful. First point, all boys. It is an advertisement. Okay, it is an advertisement of an engineering exam. So this is the JEE advanced exam, and these are the results. And these are the top 100. So actually there are 37 students in the top 100. So these are just the 37 students in the top 100. I'll just make one change. There's someone who's raised their hand. Kaushal?
Yes.
Go for it.
The tagline given in this advertisement, dreams into reality. So, and obviously all boys have scored. So it depicts the picture of the society also somewhere that, it is only the male gender who have dreams which can be turned into realities.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaushal. So I will take Kaushal's point forward in the next slide. Okay. But I want you all to keep in mind what Kaushal just said, that it reflects what society believes, that only boys' dreams can turn into reality. I want to go back to the previous person's response that this is looks like only boys can become engineers. They are the toppers in the engineering exam. Okay. Keep this in your mind. And now I'll not take any responses, sorry. And we'll go to the next one, okay? Okay. Now what do you see? Similarly, you can unmute. There's somebody who has unmuted. I'm sure it's by mistake. Okay. Now you can also quickly unmute and tell me what do you see?
The field of science is also sort of related to all identified males in the article.
Yeah, I'd love if you would please say your name, because otherwise I'm like that person.
Hi, this is Shibi here.
Okay, Shibi. Hi, Shibi. Okay, so Shibi is saying that it looks like this world of science is filled with men, with people identified as men. But let's just take it as men, because there is absolutely no what should I say, hint that these are not men. These are not identifying as men, or they're identifying as anything other than men. So let's just take it as men. Sorry, I saw some hands. Soumya Sharma, you just raised your hand and...
Yeah, I think I want to add that what I also see is when there is a word like, when there's a phrase like science makes the world go round, and there are just faces of people that we can assume identify as men, it subconsciously creates an association, men make the world go round. That's also something that I'm thinking.
Yes. And in fact, this article is also written by Amitabh Sinha, who's a male journalist. Now this, if you notice, Supriya, and this is the last response, okay, Supriya?
Yeah, sure, thanks. So, I mean, this also make me believe that it's a no woman's land, the science space and the engineering space. And that has always been my belief until I started engaging with this concept, because when you just imagine a doctor or an engineer or a person doing great work in science, it's, I personally always thought of a male figure, and it's just boost this.
Supriya, thank you. But I will, it boosts it, right?
No, so I it meant in a derogatory term that this get reinforced. These kind of images would just reinforce my previous thought कि ये space men के ही हैं. So,
Okay, but now as somebody who has engaged with these topics, do you still feel that it boosts that thought, or do you become a skeptic?
I become a skeptic, and then I would question, why is this so? And we would need an alternative narrative. The narrative needs to change.
Okay. Thank you, Supriya. Ruchi, I will move forward, but I will bring you later if there is an opportunity. Please, we have to move. I'm not sure how much time we have actually. So I'll be moving. Please, all of you, I really appreciate it, but I don't know how much time we have for interactions. I mean, so I'll just give you some context for those of you who don't know what is this prize. Okay. So this is the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, and this is given by the government of India. It comes with a gift with a cash prize of 5 lakh rupees to any scientist from 6 or 7 fields, but from premier institutions in the whole of the country. Now, the thing with the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize is that if you get it, it not only improves your own career chances and progression, it's extremely prestigious, but the institution also moves ahead in the ranking because of this prize. So we are not taking these prizes lightly. Every year, scientists are chosen to win this prize. 2022, this happened. I'm going to go back to what Kaushal said. And in some ways, sorry, I forgot the name, but just now what we discussed. Have a look at Allen coaching classes and the first person who said that it looks like all the toppers are men. Okay. And just now we had a discussion where it makes you feel like, Soumya said this, that it feels like the entire science world is made up of men. But of course, some of us are skeptics because we know how gender works. And therefore, I'm coming and asking you this question. Do these images reflect reality, or do these images influence reality? Yeah, Ruchi.
Hello, my name is Ruchi. So I raised my hand earlier to explain the same point, that it is not like that all the science field is, crowded with men, or all the engineers are only men. It is how we portray the reality. Maybe we still are under the influence that our society is, male dominant society. So we want to portray it like that. If men are saying that it is worthy, if men are getting prize, it makes sense that the institute is good because the institute has these men working as an teacher in their institute. So that organization is also good. Similarly, so this might not be the reality. It is just they are trying to portray it in a way because we in our mind have this idea ki if men's are doing it, it must be good. Or if men's are there, it's strong, it's more opinionated, through that sense. Yeah.
Correct. So one is our perception that if men win the prize, if men, then it's important. Okay. One is that perception. Now I want to ask you, I want to flip that around. One is that if the prize gets more legitimacy, if a man wins it, I want to say, but the prize also has legitimacy. So I'm saying, forget Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize. Think about the Nobel Prize for Physics, Nobel Prize for Chemistry. Now, will you say that, oh, now Nobel Prize has become important just because men are winning it? I'm not, Ruchi, I'm not going to contest the fact that perceptions, when men do something, it seems important. That perception, I'm not contesting. That's 100% right. I am trying to say also that the prize itself is perceived to be important. And it's not only perception. We know that it is not just a perception. You're getting 5 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees. I know it's not such a big amount to do scientific research, but your institution now begins to look at you as, oh, this is a Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, like, this the awardee, right? So it's not just a perception. There are actual rewards, with this prize that come along. So that's the second thing. So I'm not discounting what Ruchi said. Let's just keep that in mind. Sorry, Tehrima?
Yeah, hello. So I'm Tehrima and I'm pursuing BLEd from the Delhi University. And right now in my 4th year, I'm studying a paper that is called Gender and Schooling. So this is very intriguing. Also, when you said that science and, its relation to men, I would also bring this to your attention that, it also portrays the capitalistic society and how women subsidizes capitalism. Because you see, if you go, I'm not talking about us because I think we come from a very privileged background. I'm talking about the larger social group where we see that boys education is more valuable to parents as compared to girls education. So if you have I've seen this often, that if you have a daughter and a son at your home, if your daughter if your son is pursuing exams or whatever, no matter how much hard the study for the girl is, you will still ask her to do chores of the home, okay? And we can see, because I've seen this, I've seen this in MCD schools. The male teachers, they work to their full potential. Why? Because they do not have this worry to go home and they have to cook and they have to do these chores. They, all of these things are being done for them, are being done to them, so they're just performing at their full potential. So I think this is also a portrayal of a capitalistic society.
True, and I'll come to that. Terima, you have also opened us towards the latter part, so we'll come back to your point. So okay, so here we are. So do these images reflect reality, or do these images influence reality? I think the response is.
If I could speak, I think it's a bit of both. It reflects reality, because as someone was just saying right now, it's the son who gets the preference, whether you like it or not. It's the son who gets the chores are not, they're not expected. As as Indian parents, I think we take too much, put too much on the girls' plate and less on the boys. So it does reflect reality, and which also influences reality. So they're both interrelated. It's some of both. It's part this and part that. So it's not entirely reality, but yes, it is. And because it is part reality, yes, it is how it is reflected, it also influences reality. So we tend to think, as the discussion was going ahead right now, as we're discussing, it does influence reality, because the picture itself speaks volumes. It means that only boys, men, engineering is meant for men, and toppers are only men. Look at the ranks, 4, 6, 8, 9. In all this, I don't believe that there can't be a single girl. It's not that, but we don't promote it. We don't show that for whatever reason. Maybe somewhere in the back of the mind, it is still there that okay, women are one step behind. Women need to be one step behind. I don't know. It maybe the days are changing, the mentality is changing, but the pictures definitely don't reflect that.
Thank you. I don't know again who spoke, but thank you for that response, because yes.
This is Swapna.
Sorry, Swapna. Oh. So this is actually the case. It's both. Do they reflect reality or do they influence reality? 100% both. Now let us understand why. And I will not take responses. Sorry, I really wanted this to be conversational, but I think now we're already behind. So I'll just continue. It reflects reality because the question is, who is the teacher in Allen coaching classes? Probably a male. Suppose all these children decided, sometimes you have these study groups. Suppose there are girls in the classroom. Of course, there are girls in this 2023 cohort. Of course, there are, right? And suppose the boys decided, let us prepare better and we'll help each other. If they decided to do that, they decided to help only each other, boys, and kept the girls out. Suppose we'll say that there was actually a girls group that was studying and they didn't do that well. We have to ask why. Because what was the teacher doing in the classroom? In a classroom full of girls and boys, that only the boys did well, right? So this is what I mean. You have the numbers with you, but when you take a space lens, it helps you step back a little bit and ask, what just happened in that classroom? What's going on in the curriculum? What's the language the teacher is using, right? We can ask all these questions. And I'll take you to this. And and it also influences reality, exactly like Terima said, that if now a girl wants to go and take admission in Allen coaching classes, is she going to take? No, she won't. If I show my 5-year-old niece that, look, who are the toppers in the JEE exams, she'll say all boys, right? If you don't see yourself in a place, you will not be in that place. Now, look at this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize. It's a known fact that the ones who choose the winners of the God, I forgot the name, the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, it is a committee. So your colleagues, from your own institute, your dean, your, head of the institute, they have to nominate you. That means none of these people who are nominating women, right? So it reflects reality that, yeah, it's a boys' club, but it influences reality. So women are thinking, oh, I'm never going to get the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize anyway. What's the point? Yeah. Why do you want to become a scientist? It's not for you. You will never rise up. That's what you will hear parents say. Fine. I'll go to the next part. This is the reality. It's very easy to get lost. And I want you to keep this in mind. Sometimes spaces are created with the illusion that you don't belong. But the reality is this, that there in the Chandrayaan mission, there were women scientists. Okay? Year on year, girls outperform boys in the CBSE examinations, and in fact, even in state board examinations, girls outperform boys. If you have a look at the UPSC exam results, top 4 performers are girls. However, this actually takes us back to the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize of the year 2021. And unfortunately, 2021 also, there were no women. In 2020, there was one woman. So it has the prize list, the winners list of 2021 has influenced the winners list of 2022. If in 2021 you didn't have women, why do you want it in 2022? It's simple. You've already created a space over here where women are not invited in 2021. And that's exactly what happened in 2022. If none of these winners are women, there will, in the panel that chooses winners, there will be no women. Which means in 2023, most likely there will be no women scientists. We'll check next year. Yeah, my gut says there will be, because they've got enough outrage in these 2 years. So maybe in 2023, there will be a female scientist who's won. Okay, so I just want you to understand that spaces are dynamic. Spaces are what we make of it. Who we invite, who we keep out, who we promote, who we make feel safe will flourish in that space. Okay, so we'll go to the next part, which is the actual theory. This is Henry Lefebvre's production of space. And yeah, I'll quickly go through this theory. Okay, so Henry,
I'll start.
you have a question? Okay, Shilpi.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Very interesting discussion here. And just yesterday, I attended a conference where we had professors discussing the gender parity issue. And it was interesting coming up from one of the policymakers that said that since women are now being encouraged and to reach out for these spaces which are presumably male driven, it's also the other way around that it is working, that so that the male gender does not feel threatened that their spaces are going. So they're adding new spaces, not taking away the spaces that they already occupy, which I found really interesting. Saying that, okay, so 100 seats were there for everyone, and 95 were already occupied by male. So let the 95 be, we'll add another 50 seats where the female can come into. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I will take questions in the last part, but I don't think there is a problem with expansion. So it's such an interesting question. It comes down to this idea of value, that do those 100 seats have value only because they have 100 seats, and now by making it 150 seats, has it lost value? So this capitalistic idea that something loses value when it becomes more. So I don't agree with that. So I think that everyone should have a right to education. And therefore, if 100 seats are actually not enough for 200 people, then there should be 200 seats, because its education is a right. So I'm okay with that. So I'm actually okay with that. And of course, we can talk a little bit more about this, yeah, later. So
Sure, thanks.
yeah. So I'll quickly go through this theory of space. Now, Henry Lefebvre wrote this book, Production of Space, in 1931. It's very dense. It's very interesting. And if you can read, you can just skim through it if you wish. But lots of things he's saying in the book. It's lots of ideas. But I will focus only on this one idea, that space has three elements. Okay. One is the physical space, second is the social space, and third is the discursive space. Okay. Now, a physical space is just physical. How the space is, it can be built, or it can be a natural space. So built is a building, a place of worship, a palace, a museum, an art gallery, a prison, a theater. Okay, so all of these are built spaces. Natural spaces, just an open ground, maybe some hills, some mountains, maybe the sea, the beach. These are all natural spaces, a forest. Yeah. It is physical space, you can touch it, you can occupy it, and you can use it. Like it is just physical. It's what you can perceive, it's what you can see. So it can be measured, and it is objective. Like, if you and I, we go to maybe an extremely beautiful church, it has very nice intricate carvings, it has very nice glass decoration, like glass art. Both of us can have a look and say that, yeah, it is a glass art. It is extremely well carved, all that. So it's physical. Okay. Next is the social space. A social space is one in which you have a certain relationship with that space. Okay. The only reason, or one of the main reasons, that space has any meaning to you is because of the relationship you have. It's social. Second is also the relationships between those people who occupy that space. And I'll give you an example later on. And it can affect your feeling. And it can also be described, and it is subjective. You can describe this. How do you feel? I feel awesome. So I'll give you an example. So what's the relationship with that space? So, you have a certain relationship with that space. Like, you feel great, you feel good, you feel something. It's emotional. There is a relationship between people in that space. Let me explain this by saying, suppose you go to watch a musical and it's in a theater. Or let's say you go to watch a movie, you go to a theater, and that theater is really expensive. Imagine it's 1,000 rupees for a ticket, while you generally spend 120 rupees on a ticket. Suppose you go to this theater, someone has gifted you a ticket of 1,000 rupees. You would never spend 1,000 rupees to watch a movie. But you go into this theater one day on a gifted 1,000 rupees ticket. And when you go there, you see all these people who are happy to watch a movie for 1,000 rupees. And you are someone who will not spend, who is here only because the ticket was gifted. There automatically forms a relationship between you and the people who are willing to spend 1,000 rupees to watch a movie. Yeah, that relationship is of difference. I'm not like them. Today, I'm here to watch a movie for 1,000 rupees, but I'm not like them. I watch 120 rupees ticket movie. Okay. Fine. Everywhere you will see that there are these relationships on how you are, who you are, how you are treated. Are you invited or not invited in that space? Suppose you're all going to a salon. When you go to the salon, there is a person over there there's one salon, and there is a staff who treats you really well. Really well. You will automatically like that place because now you have a relationship with that place. There are 10 salons, but you like this salon because of the relationship you have with that salon, how you were treated, who you are, how you were made to feel. If you go there and you're told, oh, you're so unkempt, you will automatically feel uninvited. You're not going to go. There is a relationship now of difference. Suppose there is a friend of yours and both of you go together to that salon. Again, both of you are same. There's again a relationship. Okay. Finally, discursive. Discursive means what's the idea of that space? What is like, when you decide to make that space, what were you thinking? What is that space? What is the purpose of that space? Who is that space meant for? Who's going to use it? What's going to happen there? And therefore, what is it going to look like? Now, if I tell you, let's build a disco. Okay. So you'll say, yes, let's build a disco. We'll have very reflective floor, very, very shiny walls. We'll have disco light. We'll have music, very high quality speakers, very, lots of lights everywhere. That's your disco. Now, tomorrow I'll come and tell you, let's build a temple. And I'll say, yeah, let's build a temple. We'll have reflective floors, really shiny walls, disco lights everywhere, lots of loud music. And suddenly we're like, no, we're building a temple, right? Because in your idea of that space is disco is different from a temple. Okay. What's your idea of that space? Suppose tomorrow you say you're in a jail, you're in a prison. Okay. And okay, let me just make the next point and then I'll give you this example. The next point that Henry Lefebvre says is that all these three interact with each other. Your physical space interacts with the social space, your social space with discursive, and all of them have the power to influence each other. So if suppose there is a prison and discursive, the idea of a prison is that a prison should reform people. First of all, it should not exist. It should not exist. We shouldn't punish people. But because it exists, let's make this place a reform place. We'll reform everybody. We'll teach people things. And we'll make this place a joyful place. Idea. When you have this idea, everything will begin to change. The prison bars will be kept open. Movement will become possible. Everybody will say hello to each other. If you think that it's a reformist place and everybody is going to learn something in the prison, you will find tomorrow beautiful, beautiful posters stuck on the prison walls. Scientific posters, world map, different types of world maps, photographs of amazing places, scientific diagrams, beautiful art. And maybe tomorrow a library will come up in the prison because your discursive, your idea has changed the physical way. And now because you think it's a place where everybody is going to learn, now everybody is teaching each other. Everybody is going and saying hi to each other. Now because those prison bars have opened up, you're saying hello to everyone, you're just in a better mood, and everything has changed. Okay. Now let's take the other example. Suppose you're in a school and you say that, I'm going to run the school like a prison. I want everybody, all children in the school who come to this school come from the slums and from these neighborhood areas, and I'm going to reform them. And I'm going to run this school like a regimented prison. Automatically, you will change the physical space. So the gate will close. There'll be strict rules of who can enter, who can exit, strict rules on uniform, what you can look like, where you can walk, at what times you can walk. And slowly when the physical space will change, it'll start looking smaller, more crowded. Children are just stuffed inside. And that's when the relationships will begin to change. Children will start trusting each other less. They will start, looking at you as a person of authority. And slowly the idea of school will change. So I don't like to go to school. It feels just like a prison. Right? So all of these affect each other, and in every way. You think of a park, You think of a temple, you think of a disco, you think of a theater, you think of a library, museum, school, a playground, a toilet, everything. A physical will affect the social, social will affect discursive, and all of these will affect each other. And you can't say who's affecting which one first. Yeah. Should you change the idea before you change the space? Should you change the relationships? Forget the space. Like, let the space be a prison, but I'll change the relationships. And then you watch how ideas will start changing and how the physical space will actually start changing. Yeah. So this is Henry Lefebvre's theory of production of space. And we're going to go to the next part and talk a little bit about, do an exercise. I don't know how much time we have. I think we're already short. Let me quickly go. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. Okay. So I want you to all, now you all can speak. Okay. You all can look at this picture that you can see. It's a very, very, very common sight in Indian schools. Most Indian schools, I must say. Some of us have either studied in these schools, even if you're not teaching in them. So I want you to have a look at this picture and now use Henry Lefebvre's theory, physical, discursive, social, and tell me, what is this image trying to tell you? What, and in terms of gender. So what is the ideology? Like, what's the idea behind this classroom, behind this education system that you can see? How is the physical space supporting it? What is, what are the social relationships? What are the relationships between these people? Make some guesses. And this, either because you're a teacher or because you've been a student or because you have a child in a school that studies, that you have a child who studies in a school like this, or you're a, researcher, anything, just any ideas that come up. We have 15 minutes. Sorry, one second. It's 52. So maybe we'll go till 6:05. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, whoever was speaking.
Sorry to cut you. This is Abby here. I think the distinct difference is women's spaces and men's spaces are always separate, and they are dealt with a difference right from school age. Like, you're supposed to be with the girls group and the boys are supposed to be with the boys group. That's what the picture depicts for me.
So though this is a, may I, namaste? Yeah, so though this is a co-ed school, supposed to be, with the policies as a mixed gender group, but however, probably the teachers or the daily people who take care of such policies are not aware that this should be a mixed seating arrangement. Also, their firm belief, probably they have come from a social setup that girls and boys cannot sit together, and hence they implement this: girls sit separately and boys sit separately. So that impact of the teacher or the mentor, that is also a very important role. However the policies are made, the ultimate arrangement is done by the teacher who is actually inside the class, and many a times ignored to adhere to the policy of actual co-education. Thank you.
Can I?
Actually, I'll just, there are some names. There are some hands up. So I'll just take those, just to be fair. There is somebody who had raised and now not raised. So I don't know who this.
I had raised my hand. So I have spoken. I'm Lata.
Okay. I'm making notes so you all can speak. Anusha?
I just wanted to say that my observation is that seems like a very conservative classroom, because I can see somebody sitting in wearing a hijab at the bottom, at the back of the class also. And yes, it is got, the classroom has more boys, and just a very conservative social setup wherever the school or classroom is. That's my observation.
What I can see is not only the physical structure, but also the kind of questions coming to the groups, the kind of answers they are giving, the number of responses from this group and that group, that might also be different.
So this is a classic example of our classrooms from primary grades to sort of secondary and higher education. I mean, I just
Add
happened
something to
to.
this?
Can I continue? Yeah. So I just happened to be in the field today, and it was grade 1 in Uttar Pradesh, and it was exactly the same format. So at times it is parents' demand, but it is also schools' social milieu, you know. And as the children start becoming, when they start reaching teenage, it becomes even more difficult, because then a lot of, when they have bodily changes, people are not comfortable with it. So students themselves also start alienating themselves from each other, but it is not properly dealt with at school or at parents. And because at this age group, school want to shy off, because a lot of fondness towards the other sort of sex develop. They want to not address this. And yeah, it's like not address concerns related to I mean, these are looked at two separate sort of social categories within the classroom. So yeah, but this is just not a teenage. I see it happening even in primary, like grade 1 and grade 2. And when they start this, the students also therefore start disassociating themselves from each other, from their classmates.
Ironically, this is not the scene in a classroom.
I had raised my hand, like, it's been quite a time. So can I please go ahead?
Yeah, Terima, yes. And what I will do is I'll call out names. I think because, and if you, I think let's just do this. If you want to say, then raise your hands, please. Only also because I can't see who's speaking. Really, yeah.
Yeah, so can I go ahead?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So right now my internship is going on, and very surprisingly, I'm teaching third grade, and I've seen this segregation. And when I talked about this to the learners, they were like, "Ma'am, we used to sit in groups back in grade 1 and grade 2, but when we have now come to grade 3, our teacher has said that we need to the right side belongs to the girls and the left side belongs to the boys." And I have some children who are with special needs. I have a verbal and hearing impairment child, and an autistic child. So my question is, if we are going to segregate the males and females, how and we need gender inclusive spaces, if the males are will not be able to understand what goes on in the world of females, if they will never try to become empathetic towards them, how can we even think of a gender inclusive environments? And then secondly, someone said that it looks like a conservative classroom just because that one girl is wearing hijab. You will not say that if there was a boy who was wearing a turban in a class. So I think we need to reflect upon that. Thank you so much.
Soumya?
Thanks, Ayana. What I wanted to say is very similar to Tarima. I think there's a discursive space wherein boys are told from the very beginning that girls are distractions. So what that happens is there's a huge apathy, right? Like I'm supposed to stay away from them if I want to. For girls, I think the discursive space is that it's shameful to interact with boys. So what happens to their social spaces if they need something from boys, or if they need to interact with boys to succeed, they will try to avoid it. And happens a lot, happens in most of the schools, where if there's a girl interacting with a lot of boys, they're termed as, I don't want to call out the term, but teachers do call out this term. The discursive space for both the genders here, not both actually, I would like to include everyone, but what is perceived as girls and boys, so I'll be sticking to that. For both the genders, I think the discursive space also is that it's unsafe, right? After a certain age, if girls and boys are sitting together, they might engage in sexual activities or might get to know about each other, and that is unsafe for girls. I think what that creates a social space for boys is that I need to stay away from girls, and I don't need to worry about how to create a safe space for girls. That is not a discussion that either we need to have or I'm supposed to be included in. And for girls, like if there's any space where men are there, it's unsafe. That creates sort of like a mindset that like goes well into adulthood. So that's what I'm getting.
Okay, thank you, Soumya. I'll just take one more response and we'll move on just because let's see, I think we'll be short of time. Ruchi?
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. 2 points I want to highlight. So this is not only the scene of the school, even if when you go down in a society, in residential societies, there are well specified groups of elderly men and elderly women. So this is not only the sexual attraction or change of hormones, this goes down, like this is in our nerves or what, this is our culture as of now. Second thing is the lady that talked about empathy towards girls or female. Actually, I do not believe in empathizing only with women. There is a lot of pressure, social pressure, burden on men as well. So empathy should work both ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruchi. I'll just collate all the responses and just, kind of, give you, I don't know, what should I say, but just bring all the responses together. So various thoughts that came up. So one is, of course, physical space, and there's discursive space, and there's social space. And all of you have, clearly there is no demarcation in your responses because they all affect each other. So when you talk about, like the physical space is just different for boys and girls. And literally, like, when you asked, when Soumya said that, what if a girl wants something from a boy? Or what if a boy wants something from a girl? What does that look like? And these do carry on in the future. So for example, in a workplace, like it is so stigmatized that you can't talk to girls, you can't talk to boys, you can't champion boys, or you can't champion girls if you're from the opposite sex. You actually see that boys don't lend a helping hand to girls. So if you, for example, you are in an IT company and you have to choose who's going to be on your team. And if you're a man, you might not choose a woman to be on your team because of this segregation. This segregation is in your mind that if I help a girl, I'm getting out of my lane, right? The other is similarly, if a girl gets certain favors, in a workspace, it's like, why are you on that side? So in our minds, these demarcations happen. One is that this has lasting implications on the relationships that we have with boys and girls, with the opposite sex. We will not go, like somebody said, right? You will not go to help. You will not ask for help. You will not see them as, with you together, as somebody who's same. Somebody also said that this, segregation happens at the age in 3rd grade. Puberty, the year of first period is in India at about 8 to 9, which is 3rd grade. So the idea is like protect the sexuality of girls. And of course, yeah, it's true. Like, boys are told that, girls are a distraction. And that's it. You're a distraction. You can't be a colleague. You can't be a mentor. You can't be a leader. You're because girls are distractions. So I think really important points. I also want to talk, about the relationship that then develops between the teachers and the students. Now, if you see these segregations that happen, if you look at the picture very closely, where are they looking? Where is the speaker standing? In front of the boys. the photographer is standing in front of the girls, but the speaker is in front of the boys. And the way everybody's listening, like you can see one girl smiling, you can see some girls smiling and all that, right? So, and the boys are over there at the back in the center enjoying. So you know that the speaker is influential. So what happens is when you see a classroom like this and, you know, segregated spaces, you know where the power lies. You know that boys are more destructive. You know that they are most likely to get into trouble. You can see the crowding on the last benches. Although there is space in the first benches, boys have crowded at the back, and we all know this. It's much cooler to sit on the last bench. And therefore, and because boys tend to get more destructive, teachers will position themselves, their attention is most often on the boys. This means that that girl, actually the one who's probably, you know, the one who's wearing a hijab, or her partner, even if she raises her hand, she's not going to be noticed. You know, just by the sight, right? Like, how much are you going to be noticed? When you put all boys together, physically, your orientation is towards the boys. Because a teacher's performance is, you know, the first thing, you know, when you enter a classroom, the first thing you notice about a teacher is how great is the teacher's classroom management. And who are the most destructive? The boys. And so what you will do is you'll position yourself in front of the boys, and you're basically negotiating power with boys. Right? That's a totally separate part. But the way you occupy physical spaces has influences on your life outcomes, on the choices you make in the future, on who you befriend. Everything starts from the spaces you occupy. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's really all. And yeah, I think I'll go to the next part. More points will come up, and so in the next portion, and so I will also answer those. And some of the points that you all have made have actually come up, especially that one where, you know, we talk about, you know, this is our culture, because, you know, elderly men are in a certain, you know, separate group, and elderly women are in a separate group. And why? Is that really part of our culture, or it is just how we have been socialized? So that is something we will be looking at. So I will go into quickly the history of schooling in gender and education. And the reason I'm going into this is because, and I think that we will close it at this. We'll just do one more exercise, and it'll be we'll be at time. The reason I'm looking at the history of schooling and gender, because school is a physical space. And in many ways, the schooling, we cannot again say which came first. You know, did the physical spaces come first? Like, were the schools built in India first? Or was the discursive, like, were the idea came first? We are not sure. Although of course, there are certain clues that we can use, but to look at the history of education, and to then use a space lens and just see why education is the way it is today. So again, I want to start by saying that the history of education and gender in India is dependent largely on the regions. So prior to independence, India had different provinces and different regions, and each of these regions and provinces had their own history of evolution, have their own history of how they challenged gender norms, how they emancipated girls and other disenfranchised. So there are all these histories. But what I'm going to talk right now are the common elements. So whether it was in Madras, whether it was in Calcutta, whether it was in Bombay, whether it was in Jalandhar, all of these places have certain common elements which I will be picking up. There are lots of nuances, and if you're interested in that, I will be sharing like 2 papers, I mean, in the next few slides. So have a look at those papers if you want, and then from there you can read whichever paper you're interested in. So during colonial rule, India was colonized by the British, and during the colonial rule, there were largely 3 types of schools that were running. One was the government-run school, and the government-run school was run by the British government. The second one was run by the Christian missionaries, and the third one was run by a community of reformers. The British-run government schools were actually racist, and they were and racist in two ways. There are two very strong racist beliefs. One, that the colonized, that the Indians, and of course the British had these thoughts about everybody they colonized. They had it about some of the countries in Africa and everywhere, that the colonized are actually lower in terms of the intellectual abilities, and so they cannot really govern themselves. So one is everybody not able to hear me?
No, no, you are audible.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
We're able to hear you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the idea was the Indian society is degenerate because there was a lot of child marriage going on. So like, girls who are like 3 and 4 and 5 years old are getting married, are being married, sorry, to to adults, like, sometimes 18 years old, 19 years old, 21 years old. So the British began to see Indian society and Indian men as degenerate, like, barbarians, like, what kind of people these are. They can't govern themselves and they have no control over their sexuality. So one was that thought, the British, what they thought about the Indians in general. The other was schools run by the Christian missionaries. Now the Christian missionaries got a lot of patronage from the British because they, of course, converted people into Christianity. And how they did it was, of course, provided excellent education. There, the quality of education was much, much higher than the British-run schools. And the reason for that is because they were extremely well-funded. And they were well-funded because they wanted to proselytize. They wanted to convert people. And the incentives, therefore, for the absolutely poor, for those who are in the bottom of the caste hierarchy, and all those who were really, really destitute, actually flocked to Christian schools because you had certain incentives. So you probably got meals, or you got other, you were promised a job because the education quality was so good that you could actually, at the end of your education, 6th standard or 8th standard, you could actually take up a job in a school. And the last one was schools that were run by a community of reformers. Now, all sections of society, all religious identity people had their own schools because they, of course, did not want to send their children to government schools, because the British government schools hired students from the Christian missionary school. So lower caste people and women. So, and lower caste women. So they did not want their children being taught by lower caste people. So they did not send their kids to a British-run government school. And they did not want to send their children to Christian schools because Christian schools were converting you to Christianity. So a lot of, schools, like a lot of Hindu reformers, Muslim reformers, Sikh, Parsi, Jains, all of them started their own schools for their own community. Now over here, you would learn Urdu, you would maybe learn Arabic, you would learn Persian, you would learn Devanagari, like you would learn all Hindustani. So all these kinds of languages, histories, literature, everything was taught to you in these schools. I'm just talking in general, yeah? I'm not talking about boys and girls at this point. Yeah, so now here we are. Now what happened is, all this, and we also know that Mahatma Phule, Savitribai, they all started schools for lower caste people. They started a school for girls. So like that, there were lots of communities of reformers also running these schools. Now, by about the 1890s, what happened? So education was started by about 1844, 1850s. Think about that time frame. In about 1901, 1905, all these children who got educated abroad, they basically went overseas. Like, that not so early, but of course, Gandhi went abroad to study, went to London, Ambedkar went abroad. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So all of these people, elite men, they went, I'm not talking about specifically these three people, but like a lot of these elite men from this class got educated abroad. When they came back to India, they didn't have wives. Like, how can you marry somebody who doesn't know to read, doesn't know to write? And therefore, there was a need urgently felt to start educating girls of a certain class. I'm not talking about Dalit girls. I'm not talking about the absolute destitute. I'm talking about the middle and the elite classes. But however, there was a lot of conversation on what type of education can we give to our girls. Because just like you want an ideal male citizen for this country, you also want an ideal woman. You want an ideal adarsh. In Hindi, we call it adarsh bacha and adarsh nari. You want that. So nobody can just randomly become the poster child of your country, right? And all countries have this. So, but who will be this ideal Indian woman? What kind of education can we give so that this lady can become an ideal woman? And that ideal woman was seen to be Adarsh mother, like excellent ideal mother and an ideal wife in service of the nation. So your job as a woman, the education system was designed to make you an excellent mother and an excellent wife in service of your husband and children. So if you look at it, like the legacy of this thought lasts until today. So when you look at the subjects that are taught in India, what is considered great for children, for girls, there is home economics, there is nutrition, there's dietitian, there is beautician and estheticians program. All of this, lots of girls sign up for this. But when you look at boys, it's always the hard sciences. What's going to bring in the money? What's going to make you an administrator? What's going to get you more power? So that's really how the education system evolved. And this is only, I'm talking about, you can say till 1905, 1910. After that, after 1931, after independence, lots and lots of changes took place. In the 1970s, the huge feminist movement that happened in the Western world did have an influence on India, and the various treaties that were signed to make education equal for all. But these are the histories. The buildings that were built in the 1940s in Bombay, and that's where I come from, still exist today. I mean, obviously they exist today. And from the mid 1840s, 1850s, that architecture is also, it exists still today. So even a brand new school you see today has the same architecture that was in 1844. Now, if you remember that in 1844, actually girls were not allowed in schools. Place was made for girls in these existing schools that served boys. Girls were only an addition. So every time you see a new school building being made in the likeness of a building that was made in 1844, it's your cue that nothing's really going to change. Like the built environment is carrying forward that history where girls were actually not invited. And I'm saying girls, it is also, people, children with disabilities, children from the lower caste, children from, certain tribes, they were not allowed in these schools. Yeah. And I have put, we don't have the time. I really thought that we'll go through these really interesting excerpts, but I don't have the time. But if I can email this presentation to you, I will be very happy to do it. Please take the time to read these excerpts. They are fantastic. And if you really have, more interest, which you should, and I think you read Madhu Kishwar's these two papers. They're then the Economic and Political Weekly of 1986, and they're freely available. I don't know if they're freely available, they're available online. Have a read of these. They're just 36 pages long. The other one is 68 pages long. You can finish it. It's written in a way that you can understand. It'll give you fantastic insights into what was the thinking behind girls' education. Yeah. So if you could just take literally a few seconds to look at these slides. You can go, to these papers, Madhu Kishwar papers. Otherwise, find any Madhu Kishwar's previous works. Like, don't find her papers after maybe 2010. Go to her, earlier papers, what she wrote in the 1980s, in the 1990s. They're really fantastic, and they'll give you very good insights. So I think I will end it here. There was one thing I wanted you all to do as an exercise, like looking at the again, like, looking at this space now from a gender lens as well as a space lens. What does this mean? What is the discursive, belief behind this? what the physical space, how is it designed, and what then do you think are the social relations of people in these spaces? So I thought that we could have that, but we're really out of time, and we cannot. So this is the end of the webinar. I really hope it's useful. But again, any questions? I think we have 10 minutes. So I don't know, Shraddha, are you going to do the questions? I don't, how do you?
Yes,
Yeah.
just wanted to say thank you, Fiona ma'am. I mean, for such an insightful session. And I think this is a very necessary and required topic. And the idea of looking at this through a space lens has given us a tool also with which to do this now, particularly the discursive, physical, and social aspect of it. So really, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you being here. We can take questions now. So if folks have questions, we can have people raise their hand, or you can use the question answers feature and share your questions there. We'll alternate we'll take one question from the chat and one question off mute, and we can go back and forth that way. Is that fine, Fiona ma'am? There was one question from Arun, which said, I'm curious about various aspects when we see through space lens: urban, elite, and urban poor, rural, elite and poor, and various aspects in terms of access to infrastructure.
Arun, do you want to clarify your question?
Arun, are you here?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering when in terms of gender, because when I use gender, most of the spaces where, particularly in rural areas where the infrastructure is pretty less, when we talk of using toilets, etc. So at the same time, this of course elite schools have their own spaces, right? Whether it is amusement or entertainment or etc. So I want to talk in terms of this. Did you get any clarity about it or no?
Yeah, like what's your question?
Okay, so I just want to ask you, when we are talking about lens, are we talking about the class or only gender, or gender class both?
Yeah, I think it's both. And the reason for that is because, like, a poor girl, for example, like, somebody was saying, right? Like, if you have to, okay, nobody said this, but if there is somebody who, if it's a poor family and you have to make a decision, whether are you going to send your boy to a private school, which is perceived to be better, or a girl to a private school, which is, again, perceived to be better, who will you send? There are more chances that the poor boy will go, but the poor girl will be left out. So in that sense, I think we take an intersectional approach. Like, we see not just in gender, like, for example, myself, I have a gender, which is, being a woman. And in most cases, being a woman is marginalized, right? But I come from other identity markers. I'm urban, I'm well-educated, I speak English, and, all these other things, which put me in a different bracket. So my marginalization is much lesser than another poor woman's marginalization in that sense. So yes, I mean, we take both lenses, and in fact, more lenses. Gender, we look at gender, of course, class, caste, religion, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity. So there are like plenty. I hope that answers your question, Arun.
Okay, maybe a sub question for this. When we are talking about this, what about the infrastructure from the school point of view? I'm not talking right now about what you have said